Here we go. World Series coverage starts now. Stand by.
Play ball with Dave in the city, Kevin on the Cape, and the most baseball talk anywhere. This is Locks of the Week Radio.
Coast to coast, internet sports talk. Locks of the Week.
Doc Rivers continues to time and time again not get it when it comes to getting... Oh! Let him play!
How Connecticut are you? Are you wearing khakis and a polo? Regarding Lynch, who cares? What was he going to do today? Was he going to address his reporter? Oh, thank you for the question.
Cap ran through the entire Yankee lineup, but he left out one guy, and his name is Alex Rodriguez.
I like to try and forget about him because.
From Los Angeles, this is Dave in the City, brought to you by Locks of the Week Radio. Now, here's Dave Medina.
Good evening, sports fans, and a pleasure to have you here for the big World Series show. Good to have you with us from the Dave in the City studios in sunny Southern California. Wonderful to be of your acquaintance tonight. And on this night, we'll take a look at the World Series as it goes right now in game number 2 from Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. The Mets are in the World Series. They clinched it last week. The Royals are in the World Series. They clinched it over the weekend. And they got together for game 1 last night. And what a show that was. It was really a great show. And we'll talk about that tonight. Plus, we'll be joined by the Kids Club. It's really the kids duo for the moment. It's just John in Connecticut with us tonight due to the World Series. People really want to tune into the game. Totally get it. And really, I'm watching it too. It's really quite a show. So we'll have John with us tonight representing the Kids Club. Everybody else is out and about on assignment or doing other things. And we may be joined by Tom in New Jersey to fill in some of the gaps. He is not necessarily going to fill in for anybody as a proxy, but we'll have him to talk about the World Series if he calls in tonight. So we're here just for an hour. We'll be going till 10 o'clock tonight. Then we'll watch the rest of the World Series with you before we go to Kids Club and talk about all things football. Let's talk about the baseball. What a great World Series game last night. Well, just a thrill. It goes 14 innings. The Mets get the lead on an error that reminds everybody of the Buckner play at first base. And Eric Hosmer let the ball go right through his glove into the outfield, scoring a run. And we thought, oh my goodness, what a way to lose a game. But then, in the 9th inning, with one out in the inning, Alex Gordon for the Kansas City Royals, in a game that looked like the Mets were cruising, hits a bomb to deep center field to tie the game and give the Royals a 4-4 tie. They go to extra innings. Pretty valiant effort out of everybody in the pen, both for Kansas City and for the Mets. Jonathan Neese had some very nice innings. A little shaky. Bartolo Colon had a couple nice innings. And he had his, momentary shakiness. And then Yost doing all sorts of weirdness with both trying to bunt Kane with a guy already on second base, which made no sense, and throwing Ryan Madsen on the mound for an extended period of time. Dicey moves, but he got away with it. And it went to the bottom of the 14th inning where the Royals loaded the bases and then had a sacrifice fly to win the game. So Bartolo Colon was the one giving up the final run of the game, but he was there for a while. He was doing a pretty good job overall. It just didn't work out. So the Royals have the 1-0 series lead as we enter Game 2, which is in progress as we speak. We'll cover the particulars of Game 2 and any updates we have for you from the scoring. We will share with you here on this program tonight as we go live on YouTube and at ditcow.com. So as we get into that, let's talk about football. Let's also talk a little bit about the World Series. A lot going on in college football. Not much happened in terms of the games, but a lot happened off the field. And in the NFL, we work our way towards a huge Sunday Night Football matchup. And I can't wait to share that with you. Let's hit it!
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood.
Kids Club Football Picks Week number 9. And another big monster week for Ron in New Jersey. 3-1 last week and closing the gap in the standings to just half a game of the leader, which would be me, Dave in the City, who went 1-3. So it is just that close right now in the Kids Club contest. What a show we have. John in Connecticut went 2-2 to have a decent week. Say hello to Otis, went 2-2. And again, there were a lot of wild games, some crazy upsets, including Oakland just dominating San Diego. And Andy in Seattle went 1-3, along with myself, Dave in the City. So here are the standings after 8 weeks. It is Dave at first place, but not for much longer. I mean, it's 20-10. But right behind him, Ron in New Jersey, 19-10-1. He is one tie different from Dave. Incredible. And also, right there in the standings, John is in third, 17-13. And in a tie for fourth place, Otis and Andy both at 16-13-1. Boy, what a contest. Everybody above 500 this year. And it's really anybody's game. So let us now welcome in our friend John in Connecticut to the program. Good to have you back. How's it going, buddy?
Doing well, Dave. Thanks for having me on. Good to talk a little football amongst all the other sports going on. It's really a great time for sports. You got, of course, the World Series, college football, NFL, basketball just starting. So it's really a great time of year.
Really is. NBA opening week is this week. We had the opening night last night. The Warriors raised their championship banner. It was a pretty cool ceremony. I saw that last night while the game was going on. So you have that and the baseball and the football. And we're just about getting close to action, right, in the middle of the week, prime time?
Yes, next Tuesday and Wednesday, the action begins. Very much looking forward to that.
Oh, that's good stuff. I am too. I love those teams. I mean, we've really been following a bunch of them already. I mean, we were speaking about Bowling Green having a great season. Matt Johnson is back. You know, that's a huge difference. That offense is really, really tough to really good at scoring points. I mean, granted, their defense gives it back, but that is a really fun team. It's a good time. So we do have some headlines to cover for you all tonight. An update from the game. The Mets have a 1-0 lead. It just happened. And there was a ground ball, and the runner was late to first base. I mean, the runner was made it to first base before the throw got there. So the Mets have the early lead in this one in the fourth inning. So we'll keep you up to date on that as we go along. So, John, yeah, college football's really had a number, not a lot going on necessarily on the field. Although we did have a pretty big upset. I wouldn't even say, not even an upset. USC was favored in the game. They completely destroyed Utah, which is a big, that's big for the Pac-12. And it's kind of tough for Utah to really stomach that one because they didn't just lose, but they lost going away. So you have that. Seth Russell's out for the season. He hurt his neck during the game. And I forget who Iowa State, I think. And then they managed to win the game anyway. But one setback for Baylor, who really had the inside track for the Big 12. They still do, I think, but it's just going to be more difficult. And the big news, I think, a couple guys retire this week, and one was fired. Al Golden was fired after losing 58-0 to Clemson at home. I didn't notice that part. George O'Leary retires from UCF. And finally, I remembered to write this down, Jerry Kill, coach of Minnesota, retires. So with all that on the table, let's talk to you, John, and get your feel for what happened last week and just all the craziness off the field. That's really the bigger story here.
Yeah, I mean, I called it on USC. That was one of my picks last week. It was just one of those things. You know, Utah was the third-ranked team in the country, and they were getting 3 points. And they were getting 7 points by game time. Anytime you see something like that, with an unranked team favored over a ranked team, especially at home, you kind of got to go with that play. So as smart as I looked with that pick, I looked just as dumb with my other college pick, which was Miami, who lose 58-0, as you mentioned, and I get Al Golden fired. Really, I think they had like 7 or 8 draft picks last year, and they're just a middling team, so they had to get rid of him. We'll see where they go now going forward. Obviously, some of these names from the AAC are going to be hot. I know Ron has been very high on the guy from Memphis, Fuente. We'll see. I don't know. I think Miami might be looking for kind of flashier name. but he would certainly do a good job there. My feeling is maybe they reach back and reach out to Butch Davis again, the former Miami coach. So we'll see about that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I could see that happening. I mean, he really recruited well for them. As for the Baylor news, I mean, people are writing this off like their season's over now. If anybody knows anything about Baylor, it's that the system is what makes them so great, not necessarily the guy who was running it. I mean, they've gone from RG3 to Nick Florence to Bryce Petty and now Seth Russell. There's no reason to think that Jared Stidham can't step in and run this offense. Now, granted, he's not going to have a whole off season to kind of get down the nuts and bolts of it like the other guys had when they took over. But he's played in just about every game this year, in blowouts. I know, like in the fourth quarter. But by all accounts, he's like one of the highest-rated recruits that Baylor's ever had. So I'd say give it a chance, and it'll be very interesting to see where the playoff committee has them ranked next week. Because they're not going to play a game until next Thursday, I believe. They're off this week. So we'll see where the playoff committee ranks them. I don't think their season is over by any means. I think Stidham can play well for them, and they got a couple weeks before the big games really start when they play Oklahoma, TCU, Oklahoma State. I think they play Kansas State in their next game, so maybe kind of a warm-up game there. The other news: the two retired coaches. Very sad to see Jerry Kill retire. He couldn't battle his health problems. He did a great job at Minnesota, kind of taking them from really just a miserable program when he took over to respectability in the Big Ten. And George O'Leary 2 years ago, 12-1, winning the Fiesta Bowl, and now they're like 0-8.
0-8.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, UConn beat them. We got the conflict trophy, so that's all that matters, man. Yeah. So we'll see. You know what? I said it the other day, but who would be perfect for that job is my good old friend Randy Edsel, who was fired from Maryland. Yeah, I could see him going to UCF easily. Because if there was a league ever made for Randy Edsel, it's the AAC. He can't handle the Big Ten, going up against Urban Meyer and Mark Antonio, but he'd fit right in the American. So I could definitely see him reaching out to Edsel. So we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to follow all these coach openings in the offseason. I mean, just a ton of jobs now. I think there's like 10 job openings, and we're not even halfway through the season. So it's just going to be crazy, by the end of the year with the firings and everything else.
Yeah, and another one that you had been calling, speaking of USC, you had Chip Kelly going to SC. So while they waited out, it's going to be interesting to see how they finish off this year. They can't lose less than 3 games, so they're not really going to do any serious bowl games. But it could say a lot about the rest of college football because they have some big games. They're going to play Notre Dame. They're going to end up playing Stanford later, UCLA. These are all big players in the Pac-12.
Yeah, USC is going to have a major role in this. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts if, they finish strong. Do they give consideration to Clay Helton for the job? Because I know he's taken over as an interim coach before and done well, but let's say they, go 5-1, 4-1 or whatever down the stretch, would he get serious consideration?
That's a great question. I mean, that's the Coach O question, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if they're going to really go through with that. I mean, the one thing you could say about Helton is that there hasn't been much to say, which is good. That means that he hasn't really caused a stir. He's not a bit of a mongo off the field. He's not drinking all over the place. He seems like he's level-headed compared to everybody else, which may not be saying much, but I think maybe that's what USC wants. So the answer is potentially, but not likely, because when you see that Chip Kelly, and he's going to be done, like the Eagles are going to get rid of him before the seat is dropped, before the seat is cooled down from his coaching chair. I mean, he's gone.
I don't know, Dave. I don't think the Eagles would fire him. I think the only way he'd leave there is if he chooses to leave by himself, which
Interesting.
is certainly a possibility, but it just gave him like total control of the team and personnel. Obviously, he bet on the wrong horse with Bradford. I honestly think that the whole thing was a trade chip to try to get Mariota, and it didn't work out. But
right.
I don't think they'd fire him. I think he might leave because he just sees it's not going to work the way he's tried his system. He tried to plug whatever players into a system and it doesn't work, and now he just sees two great openings at either Miami or USC or even South Carolina is a job in the SEC. But I don't think they'll fire him. And I could definitely see him leaving if, say, the Eagles go 8-8 and USC is sitting there. That's definitely a temptation.
No, Chip Kelly really marches his own drum, so that none of that would really surprise me, honestly. I think you make a good point. Before we get to picks, one last note. Two teams have really emerged as very sneaky watches, and one is not so sneaky. I think this is one that we really have come to expect, actually, at the end of the day, and it's Temple. Temple's 7-0, and a huge win as they played ECU, and they were trailing. In fact, they may have been trailing by 2 scores. They come back, and they scored 2 big touchdowns, one to get it close, and then one to take the lead, if I remember correctly. Or maybe it was to take the lead and then to ice it. But that fourth quarter, last 5 minutes, they came up huge. And that was a huge comeback for Temple. And I just thought that was a big win for them because now they go in with a big head of steam to the ABC game against Notre Dame next week. John, I don't know if you saw the ending of that game, but it was certainly one to watch.
Yeah, I caught the end of it. They really didn't play that well, and then they just, what winning teams do, they made the plays in the fourth quarter, and they were actually 3-point underdogs in that game, which kind of made you a little nervous, similar to the USC-Utah game. But they did what they had to do, and they were maybe looking ahead to Notre Dame. But they won, and they get game day and the whole bit this Saturday, so it'll be a fun game. They certainly, I don't think they have as much talent as Notre Dame, but night game, the home crowd, the whole bit. Certainly going to be a competitive game, that's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll talk a little bit more about that in after picks. Iowa's 7-0, and I think that's just one where we've been down on them for so long. We don't know what to think when they actually get a good record. So they beat Wisconsin. They have not had a great schedule, but I will have to give Ferenz credit here for going 7-0. I don't think it's going to stay that way. I think they may even have 4 losses by the end of the year anyway, but what can you say? I mean, Iowa's done a pretty good job. So let's get your. Did you pick up on that too? I just saw it. I'm like, whoa, the 7-0. It really threw me for a loop. I mean,
yeah.
Do you buy it?
I mean, they haven't played a great schedule, but you got to give them credit for winning the games. They've been impressive so far. I don't think they're going to go 12-0. I think they're going to slip up, but hey, if they go 12-0, they'll be in the Big Ten title game with a spot to play for the playoff. I mean, you're not going to keep out a undefeated Big Ten team that likely just beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. So I actually am going to be picking that Iowa-Maryland game this week in my picks. So save a few thoughts for that in a couple minutes. All
right, sounds good. Let's get to picks. So most of these are going to be via text tonight, and if we hear from Tommy, we'll get his 8 or whatever NFL bets of the week. So let's start with Ron in New Jersey, the leader. He sends these to us as we wish him well over at his whatever he's up to, doing trick or treating or what have you with the kids. Good times. All the best to you, Ron in New Jersey. Let's now get to his Week 9 college picks, and we start with another favorite of the kids club, Houston, and Tom Herman just having a tremendous season, taking a good offense and making it even better. He has Houston -11 versus Vanderbilt at home. So at Houston is the first pick. Maryland +17 for game number 2 at Iowa. So this sounds like, John, this is going to be a game that's going to be talked about a lot on the pick segment. So now Maryland doesn't really score a lot of points, but it could be an interesting case of Iowa being a little bit in over their head as a reasoning for taking Maryland +17. So to recap, Houston -11, Maryland +17, Ron in New Jersey's Week 9 football picks for college. All right, John, so now it is your turn to give us the picks for Week number 9 in college football.
All right, Dave, well, let's piggyback on that one that Ron took, so I didn't have another game to change because I didn't think anyone would take this game, but I'm glad to see him on the same side as him. We'll take Maryland plus 17 as well. Listen, like we just said, Iowa's had a great season. They're 7-0. I mean, can you really trust Iowa giving 17 points? I really can't. I mean, I really haven't seen much to say that they could cover a spread this big. And, you know, as we all know with Kirk Ferentz and that team, when they start to get expectations is when they usually falter the most. And, you know, Maryland, I think it's one of those things where, kind of like with the Dolphins, they fired Philbin and now they're just like setting the world on fire. They got rid of Randy Edsall and they played a really good game against Penn State last week, and I think lost by a point. I just think it's just way too many points. Iowa's going to win, but I could see them winning this game by like 10 or 13. And the back door, is, as Andy likes to mention in many of these games, is going to be wide open for Maryland. So give me Maryland plus 17 for the first game. And for game 2, I took USC last week because I felt the line was kind of speaking to. I'm going to go against USC this week. I'm going to take Cal, getting 6.5 at home. I just think that USC is just too up and down, and I think that was just a big emotional win, and I think they're going to have their down week now this week, and for them to be laying this many points on the road against a good Cal team and a good Cal offense is just way too many. They very well might win the game. I think they're going to get beat outright, but you're still getting 6.5 points at home. Jared Goff didn't look too great against UCLA last week, but again, that's a road game. They're back home, and I think they can put up a number of points. And you know, I think they win the game, but you're still getting 6.5 points at home, even if you know, USC happens to win by a field goal. So give me Cal plus 6.5 for game number 2.
Great picks, John. Good thinking. You know, I'm it definitely in my heart. I feel the same way actually about Cal. USC had a monster effort defensively, like we haven't really seen most of the season. And Cam, I wrote his name down here. Let's see if I have it. Cameron Smith. Yeah, that's right. Cam Smith. He intercepted the ball 3 times in the game. And so, you know, you just can't imagine that happening again.
Yeah, he had an unbelievable game. I think a couple of those passes were just like thrown right at him too. Like the quarterback didn't see it, but still, like he's just a freshman too, so he's got a great career ahead of him.
Yep. You know, I find there's an interesting question about USC since it's just the two of us tonight. I noticed that defensive players do really well as NFL draft prospects, but offensive players are usually pretty average to below average, mostly below average. So, do you find that funny that the defensive players are more NFL capable than the offensive players?
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, I know the Packers have 2 USC players. They obviously Clay Matthews and probably the less known Nick Perry, defensive end. He's played really well this year. He got hurt, but yeah, I mean, can you really think of the last USC, you know, offensive player to really light things on fire in the league? I mean, I guess you can say Carson Palmer is still playing strong. I mean, Reggie Bush really is just kind of a role player now. I mean, that's really about it. That's still, you know, I can think of off the top of my head. But so yeah, it's strange to think about.
And not only, you know, that's so long ago. That's a pre-Pete Carroll player. That was a Paul Hackett player who had Carson Palmer. So that really gives you a feel for just how, for whatever reason, like, I mean, even some of these guys have been pretty talented too. I mean, Matt Leinart, for example, you mentioned Bush already. And even Marquise Lee, I mean, he got hurt, but we just haven't heard much from him this season. Meanwhile, you got like Leonard Williams making a decent impact on the Jets, and then you mentioned your players. And you go to the Texans, you've got guys, you got Brian Cushing, for example. It's crazy. Like, it's just the depth of defense at USC is really good, but offense just doesn't happen. So it's very, I just don't know. I mean, it's just funny. I just think that's a really interesting observation. So on we go. And we'll go to say hello to Otis's picks for week number 9 in college football. Here they are. He will go checker and a checker with Ron in New Jersey. He picks Houston -11 against Vanderbilt. So game number 1, Houston -11. Game number 2 for Oatman. Head-to-head with both Ron and John, he likes Iowa -17 versus Maryland. And I
thought that no one, like, this was one of the most obscure games on the schedule, and you got 3 people picking it.
Isn't that funny? Like, 3 of us picked this game. That's great. Oh, man. It's probably that Meth Moans game, right? Isn't it like one of those ESPN2 games, you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably a 3:30 game, ABC, ESPN, one of those things.
Okay. Yeah, well, you can't predict the Kids Club season, so again, the 2 picks, Houston -11, Iowa -17 for week number 9, Oatman's picks. Now to Andy in Seattle for other written picks. Here they come. Game number 1, he likes Temple plus 10.5 at home against Notre Dame in the big nighttime game on ABC. And I'm going to save this analysis for a little bit later, but Notre Dame had a very nice win to close their into their bye week, I think. They beat USC, so they are going to come out. I think they're coming off a bye, right, John? Just double checking that, but I think they are.
Yeah, right. I think they played USC 2 weeks ago.
Right. So that's a plus for them, but Temple probably very motivated for the game. Game number 2 for Andy in Seattle. Florida -2.5 against Georgia from Jacksonville in what they call the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. It'll be a fun game. John and I will break that down in a little bit. But to recap, Temple plus 10.5, Florida -2.5 for Andy and Seattle's picks, Week 9 college football. Great picks, Andy. Thanks very much for those. And now, finally, after... This is just how bad my week went last week. It's all right. So I'm having a good year, and I'm very thrilled that I've been leading like half the season. Still can't believe that. So now we're just going to try to get back on track, and here are the picks for week number 9 and college football. Dave in the City. Game number 1. We go checker on a checker with Andy in Seattle. I, too, will take Temple plus 10.5 against Notre Dame. Temple has 11 returning starters on defense for this season. And what that amounts to is the 6th best ranked defense in the nation. And this is according to yards allowed. But as we saw from the 5th best defense in the nation, that would be Appalachian State last week, defense goes a long way. And with a point spread this big, I think Temple's going to be in this game for a while. Another thing about Notre Dame. Yeah, so coming off a bye week, I don't like Kaiser. I don't think Kaiser throws the ball that well. And they don't play nearly as well on the road as they do at home. When they win by a lot of points, notice on the schedule is that they're at Notre Dame when they do that. It'll be a different story here on the road. Now, maybe Notre Dame will win by 50 points, but I think I get good value with a 10.5, as Andy feels. So we'll go Temple plus 10.5, game number 1. Game number 2, this is clearly, blatantly, not even making an excuse for it. This is a complete spite pick. We're going Washington State plus 12 at home against Stanford. And this is more anti-Stanford than pro-Washington State. I just had enough of Stanford. I think this is about the point where Stanford hype reaches a fever pitch. And for what? A guy running for 300 yards a game? It's not like that's not indefensible. I don't think Stanford is that good. So I don't think they will cover the 12-point spread. Give me Washington State plus 12. To recap, Temple plus 10.5, Washington plus 12 for the Week 9 football picks, Dave in the City. All right, so that's it for college picks. We have a few featured games this week. And, John, let's start quickly with Notre Dame versus Temple. And basically, I mentioned the defense already, but what do you think are going to be the keys if Temple is going to win the game? Do you think it's something they can do?
Yeah, I mean, in a game like this, they got to get off to a good start. Like I said, their talent level clearly is not going to match up to Notre Dame, but their defense is what's going to keep them in it because, like you said, it's one of the better ones in the country with all those returning starters. So they can kind of get their defense going and just kind of hang around. They have a really good running back, Jahad Thomas. They really lean on him a lot. I think they can hang in this game. I like your guys' pick of them covering the 10.5. I don't know if they'll win, but I'd be very surprised if this wasn't like a real competitive, close type of game, especially with the whole – very rarely do you see teams that host college game day and get like this exposure, lay eggs, at home. Obviously, Rutgers was the exception to the rule last week. But, they didn't host game day. They didn't host game day, so it's an exception. But yeah, I mean, I think Notre Dame will win, but I definitely think this will be a really close game. Low scoring, maybe like 24-21, something like that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't think Notre Dame will score the 30s necessarily in this one. I'd be surprised if they did. And by the way, Arizona's the other one. And Andy had a huge tirade after that game. Arizona having college game day, having the game, and they laid a complete egg. Yeah,
that was a joke. The whole day started wrong when they brought on Bob Backford, who wouldn't know a fall from his ass to do the guest picking. I mean, stick to your horses, buddy. He didn't know anything. So once I saw that, I was like, you know what? They're in trouble because when you bring on someone lame like that to make your guest picks, you just got the day off to a bad start.
Oh, man. Bad juju there. Yes, sir. All right, so we continue with our breakdowns. Just a couple others. So USC Cal, I mean, you already had a pretty good analysis of the game. This is going to be an interesting turning point for Jared Goff, and it is too bad that Cal couldn't beat UCLA because Andy was very excited, as was I, about Cal going into the game against Stanford with a nice record, like basically winning out to get to that point. Would have been really cool, and unfortunately it didn't happen. So, yeah, I think Cal's definitely a live dog here, especially getting almost a touchdown at home. So I don't think it's just that easy for USC. It doesn't mean it won't happen, but I feel the same way you do. I think Cal's going to be very tough to beat, and what they really got to do is just get the ball downfield because the secondary is probably the weakest part of USC's defense. That's the way to go, especially if you can get it down the middle. Cameron Smith had a great week last week, but again, you're not going to throw passes right to him. So that's the difference between Goff and forgot the guy that with Utah's quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. I think the problem you're going to have with Cal is the lack of running game because they just can't run the ball. Is that going to eat them up? They need to establish the run to some degree to at least control tempo, don't you think?
Yeah, that is the one thing about their team is they're very highly dependent on Goff just throwing the ball around, which, some games it works out for them, but if they get behind and the other defense can really tee off on them, I'm just really counting on just USC just being so up and down, and they had their up week last week, it's time for their down week, and, I just really can't trust them laying this many points on the road. It's interesting to note that there are a ton of home dogs this week if you're into that kind of thing. I don't know, Dave, if you follow Scott Van Pelt does like his winners segment every week, and he picks 5 dogs every single week. Mm-hmm. And he's pretty successful for him, and he picks like a lot of these home dogs that are pretty ugly on paper, but they end up covering. He has a pretty good record doing this. But so it's very interesting that there's a ton of home dogs this weekend. So we could see, even though it's not like a great week on paper, we could see a lot of craziness happen this weekend.
I am familiar with his winter segment. That goes back to his radio show with the SVP and Rosillo, and so it was always fun to listen to him run that whole thing down. And I still see it occasionally on his new show, the Midnight Sports Center on ESPN TV. Yeah, he is doing pretty well. You're right. That the record speaks for itself, and it'll be interesting to see what he selects for winners this week. By the way, one pick game I should make this a Tommy bonus pick, but I love Oregon too against Arizona State. And it's funny to see that Oregon is getting points now. That just shows you how far they've fallen. Because even last year, they would not have been giving points at Arizona State, would they have?
Maybe. I don't know. No, Oregon would have been giving points last year at Arizona State. It might not have been a lot of points. It might have been like maybe 6 or 7, but they would have been given points. That's just two clown cars crashing into each other tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oregon's been a disaster this year compared to their normal standards, and Arizona State, you never know what you get from them and Todd Graham. So 6 games tomorrow night, actually, in the FBS, which is pretty cool. We got North Carolina and Pitt. TCU, West Virginia is a good game. And then, of course, you have some smaller games. Your Georgia Southern team, Dave,
Yeah.
laying to Texas State. I thought you were going to go back to the well on that one. But they should blow them out. But, yeah, you had a tough take against App State last week. They're a good team.
Yeah, that's a good team. Appalachian State's defense totally underestimated them. They've looked much better defensively this year. And the fact is, Georgia Southern does not throw the ball much. I mean, not only do they not throw the ball well, they don't throw the ball. Like, they throw the ball like 3 times a game.
Yeah, they run that triple option. It's really effective against teams like you're going to see tomorrow. They're going to run all over Texas State. But against teams that have, athletes on the defense like Appalachian State, it's really not going to work out.
Right, totally. And that pass rusher for Appalachian State definitely was impressive. I mean, I was reading about it. I think I picked that one more with my heart than I did with my brain because I was in it. I was riding the wave when they beat Idaho, and I don't know. I mean, maybe that would be a good one to take off the contest. Georgia Southern. Yeah, it's interesting. Texas State. I think they're gonna even beat Texas with a 21-point spread. No, I'm getting carried away. But anyway, good stuff. Yeah, I'll take a look at that one tomorrow. That will be on ESPNU. That's like their home right now. They're moving up. They're moving to ESPNU.
Yeah, I know. And they got some action tomorrow night, too. So lots of sports going on. So that's good. And then, of course, the Thursday night NFL game. So very good sports watching night.
Oh, yeah. Tomorrow's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward. There's a lot of games you can be bouncing back and forth between them. And you mentioned Oregon, Arizona State. That'll be on Fox Sports 1. Hopefully no power outages like with the World Series. Jeez.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm ashamed to admit I fell asleep on the game last night, so I don't know if I can comment on baseball if it's allowed or not. But
off limits. No problem, John. Let's just get to the last game on as far as breaking it down. Georgia, Florida. And Tom has joined us, but we'll get to him in just a moment. I like this game a lot. This is, even though generally this game doesn't really mean a whole lot, it does this year because this is the de facto battle for the SEC East. You're talking about SEC East number 1 versus SEC East number 2. Georgia needs this win. And Florida, and I just was too busy at work. I couldn't figure out if Will Greer is going to play or if his suspension carries past this week. But either way, I think Florida would be the team to beat in this one, even though Nick Chubb, very good player, but you know how Rick does in big games. So I wanted to pick your brain on this one. Georgia, Florida, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville. A fun time. What do you make of it? Who do you think will win?
Yeah, I can't get a read on this game. Logic would say Florida's going to win just because of the Mark Richt factor in, a game like this. Florida played okay without Greer against LSU, and his suspension does last for the season, so he's not coming back anytime soon. McElwain's done a really good job so far, and they're kind of riding this magic carpet wave. But Georgia, I don't know, they kind of have a way of showing up sometimes just when you least expect them to, which is kind of not like Mark Richt. When you expect them to win, they are kind of lay an egg, and when you're not really expecting much, they kind of show up. The games between these two are really unpredictable. I remember a couple of years ago, Georgia was just a huge favorite over Florida when Muschamp was there, and it just ran all over Georgia. And the next year, everyone thought Florida would win, and then Georgia won. So it's just really crazy when these two teams get together. If I had to pick, I don't know, Dave. Give me Florida by a field goal. I know it's kind of a cop-out with the spread, but it should be just a really close game, and you're definitely right. Whoever wins this game has the driver's seat in the East Division, that's for sure.
I'm going to take your side on that and Andy's side. We all three of us agree that Florida should win the game by at least 3. So I'm going to go Gators. And again, I can't say whether it's low scoring or not. I think it could go either way. So we'll go Florida, take the chalk, and pick them to win this pretty good game. I think this will be fun to watch. So that wraps it up for college. Let's give you an update from the World Series, game number 2. And the Royals tie the game with a single that scores 1, so the score is now 1-1, tied up here in the fifth inning, but there are runners in second and third with the Royals threatening and one out. So it's not over yet over in Kansas City. The Mets really need this win. Probably not as much as the Royals needed yesterday's game, but they still could use the win because to have it 1-1 going back to Queens for the middle three will be a big spot for the Mets. They'll be in good shape. And the Royals, obviously, if they go up 2-0, huge advantage for Kansas City. Tom in New Jersey now joins us on the program. Welcome to the show, Tommy. How's it going tonight? And thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, Dave. Of course, when I call in is when all the juice in the baseball game starts. Hopefully, the Mets get through this inning, and hopefully I win my bet.
Your bet, that's
I want to
right.
win the $450, so we'll see.
That's a lot
It
of
doesn't
dough.
look good right now.
A lot of bones. A lot of bones.
Wow.
A lot of bones.
Wow, that is a lot of bones. No, RD wouldn't be shaming that bet, that's for sure.
He definitely wouldn't be. I was smart. He made a 9-1 bet odds on the Mets winning the World Series back in, I think it was late July. And I took the bet for $50, and hopefully I win. We'll see, though. Doesn't look good. But as Dave said, the game's not over, and if they get this to one game apiece, I like their chances. But with the way the home field is now, with Game 6 and 7 being in Kansas City, I think it gives them a huge advantage. So, which kind of stinks for the Mets, but they didn't deserve home field anyway.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, it's the Royals are a very tough team to beat anywhere, but especially at home, and they just keep coming at you. It's so funny how last night they go to the bottom of the ninth inning, and you think, all right, the Mets have it. You have Familia on the mound, but all of a sudden, without really even any kind of warning, Alex Gordon clobbers a ball to save the game. And that just really tells you all about Kansas City. It's not just the home runs. They can do it with like base hits, getting a guy the other way, butting guys over, although not too much. As you saw, Kane overdid it last night. But they've been doing that all postseason, and they did that last year as well. So it's certainly fun. Let's go get an update from the game. But yeah, Tommy, I mean, if you are the Mets fan and you are playing in the role of Mets fan for the sake of the 9-1 wager, are you worried at this point in time? It is a pretty big spot. It's the middle of the game, and there are runners in scoring position. I mean, where's your head at if you are a Mets fan?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm about a 6 right now on the worry scale.
Mm-hmm.
DeGromm has looked good, but these Kansas City hitters just find a way to get tons of pesky bullshit, whatever you want to call it, type hits. And obviously Gordon's hit wasn't bullshit yet last night, but they find a way to get these pitchers out of the games early. And I'm a little stunned that DeGromm's struggling this much right now, but considering how he looked in the first few innings. But yeah, I'm about a 6 right now, Dave.
Yeah. This is definitely a very tense moment in the game. I mean, the game could really turn on a dime, and I mean, DeGromm has to count in his favor right now, 1 and 2. But again, these at bats. I mean, like you're right. These guys were great at bats, and even when you have a two strike count, it means nothing because they just foul off the pitch and foul off the pitch. They rarely strike out. It's a very old school kind of team in that way. They go for the extra base. They steal a lot. So there is a lot of that. I mean, so give them all the credit in the world. The Royals do have the intangibles, not intangibles, but just really good at doing the little things in the game. And it's funny to think that because Yost is, to me, not a good manager. I mean, he left in, who was it, Herrera when Wade Davis was ready to go in that Toronto game. And he gave up a tying 2-run shot to Bautista in Game 6. But all told, this team does have the right mindset at the plate. So we'll keep an eye on it. And any update on that, Tom? Are you watching the game as we speak?
I am not. I'm in a different room on purpose so I can listen to you, Dave. 'Cause otherwise, I wouldn't listen to a word you're saying.
Well, I'm happy to report that there is one more out. The batter, whoever was at the plate, just got out.
Yeah, I got the game on, Dave. Kane lined out to center field. So now there's 2 outs, and there's still guys on second and third.
And
they didn't try. The ball wasn't deep enough for a sac fly.
Yeah, it wasn't deep. It was kind of like a line drive, and he got it into the catcher pretty quick. So they didn't try to tag. So now Hosmer is up with guys on second and third.
Last night's hero getting the sacrifice fly to win the game. Also, the potential GOAT in the 8th inning. The ball went right off him to go into center field to give the Mets the go-ahead run at the time in the 8th inning. So will Hosmer have some magic in him tonight in this 5th inning with 2 outs? We will let you know in just a moment. But in the meanwhile, let's talk about the NFL. And I'll tell you what, the London game on Yahoo was a success, and mostly for the novelty of it, but a very captivating game according to the numbers. A lot of people checked it out. I even popped it up as I got out of bed and just used my fantasy football app on the phone to pick it up. So how did you guys do with that game? Did you watch the game? Were you able to find it on Yahoo? We'll start with John. Let's talk a bit about week number 7 in the NFL, but a little bit of a lean on that London game. What was that experience like watching the game online?
All right. Well, first off, Dave Hosmer gets a signal, so 3-1 KC. They score both runs. Yeah. So the game on Sunday. Sorry, Tommy. I popped up the game on my smart TV. I just turned it on. Had the Yahoo app. And it came in really clear. Picture was great. It buffered a couple times, but overall, I mean, I think it went well. And I think, it's definitely something that, the NFL is all about making money, and I could see them, the digital wave of the future. They could send, 2 or 3 games like this every year. Just kind of send them to the Yahoo scenario or whatever, Google or Apple, whatever provider wants to get in on it. So yeah, it was a good game, and despite the loss, Rex Ryan likes what he sees from his team, and we're going to keep working hard to get better, and no one's going to want to play him. So that's pretty much it for the London game. As for the rest of the week, really not that much to talk about. To be honest, it was kind of a dull week. The Colts lay another egg. We're going to be in trouble now. That division is just horrible. I mean,
yeah, so bad.
Yeah, and they don't even deserve a playoff spot, that division. That's just gross. But, and I mean, really, trying to look at the scoreboard here to get some other quick thoughts. I mean, really nothing else happening. But obviously, the Jets-Patriots was a good game. The Jets probably going to be a playoff team. They really showed you something there. And then, I mean, that's really about it. And I guess the Panthers continue to impress. 6-0. And they should get to 7-0 after they handle the Colts on Monday night. So we'll see what happens. If the Packers can beat the Broncos, we'll have another matchup of undefeated teams the following week because the Packers play at Carolina. So if you want high juice, root for the Packers to win Sunday night and for the Panthers to win on Monday night.
Yeah, that's a great game coming up, the Packers against the Broncos. We'll talk about that in detail after picks. And I'll just give you my quickies on week number 7 in the NFL. Pretty much nothing else to add except for the fact that the Raiders. The Raiders beating the Chargers is never a surprise in any year, even when they're bad. But they kicked them to the curb. I mean, they killed them. They destroyed the Chargers at San Diego. Although you wouldn't know it from the crowd. The crowd was really pro-Raider. But that was an unbelievable performance by Derek Carr and the team. And what's really remarkable is that the Raiders played so well in that game. They basically stopped playing in the fourth quarter and went prevent the whole quarter, and they still won. They just weren't even trying on defense anymore at the end. They still won the game. It was incredible how dominant they were for 3 quarters of that affair. So that's it. And Tommy, your Giants, my God. What the hell? I mean, could you be more disappointed in a win than one might be with the Giants winning that game against the Cowboys? Tom, let's get your feel for your thoughts about Week 7 plus the Giants.
I predicted before the season started on your podcast that the Giants will win 5 or 6 games.
Right.
Obviously, they're going to win more, but the team is still the team. They're still the Giants. They look like crap. Defensively, they get so many turnovers, and you can't rely on that in the long run. And if they didn't get those turnovers, the teams will be going up and down the field, scoring touchdown after touchdown. So it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I don't think they're a very good team, obviously. Defensively, they're actually a joke, in my opinion. Offensively, they don't throw the ball downfield enough. I don't like their new offense at all. I feel like Eli isn't really Eli. Yeah, he doesn't get that many turnovers. He doesn't throw that many picks, but he's not the same quarterback. He's not throwing it downfield. I mean, Beckham only had, 4 catches this past week, and Eli threw for under 200 yards. At some points, I think the team's unwatchable. I know a lot of Giants fans are going to be mad at saying that, but they're not a very fun team. And if I was a neutral fan, I would not be watching any Giant games. And I'm sure John feels the same way. The Giants are a tough team to watch. In a lot of these games, that Dallas game is just unwatchable at moments. Both of those teams are just not very good. And sadly, some team in the NFC East is going to win that division, and the division's an absolute joke. I mean, look at Bradford right now. He looks like garbage. He can't throw it downfield, and when he does, he gets picked constantly, tons of interceptions, and everybody was going gaga about him in the preseason. Now I know why St. Louis was thinking to get rid of him. He stinks.
He does.
The division's a joke. Washington plays good defense. Cowboys would be a lot better if Romo and Dev were playing, but they're not. And by the time they come back, it's going to be too late. Castle's not a good quarterback. He doesn't know the playbook. That's obvious. It's just a mess. It's unfortunate because whoever wins that division is going to get killed in the first round, and they're going to get a home game too, which is another joke. But, yeah, that's pretty much it, Dave.
Yeah, the timing could not have been worse for Romo to have that bad an injury early in the season. I mean, just imagine if he had been able to come back even this week. They could have rescued the season right there, but they're 2-4, and they're going to Seattle. I mean, there's just no shot. I mean, the only way they have any shot at all is if they – they're not going to Seattle. They're going to play Seattle at home. But the only way they have any shot at this is if they beat Seattle this week on the Fox game. And that's another thing. Here's the problem when you try to isolate one game for your doubleheader as your second game. If the teams suck, you're hosed, and Fox is getting hosed 2 weeks in a row. It just was stupid thinking, not putting in a backup game or something to augment this NFC East game that they always just assume is going to be great, and it just isn't. It sucks, and this week's game will suck too. So it's just unfortunate that Fox didn't think that one through. So that's it for me too. I mean, John, anything else to augment to this conversation?
No. If Paul Dottino or Kim Jones are on the program, they said that was a classy, gritty win, and the Giants would be looked out for, and now they're going to make a postseason run, and they're going to get hot, and who knows what can happen once you're in the playoffs.
Well, I do want to thank the Giants for one thing, and that's giving my fantasy player Darren McFadden a lot of fantasy points. Thank you very much, Giants defense, for that. Could not stop the run all day. We appreciate it. I think it helped contribute to the win. Yep. And so we're back in this thing in the Boomer League in fantasy football. So let's go to picks.
Wait, Dave, you started him this past week?
Yeah.
That's a tremendous job.
Thanks.
How did you know to even start him? Wow.
I guess. I don't know. I was getting desperate, man. I was just saying, let's just try it. Let's see what happens. And it actually worked out.
I think you need to give
Holy
Tommy
crap.
He's in the cellar in his own league.
Oh, let's not even go there. At least I'm not as bad as LT, but the past 2 years, my fantasy football team has been disgraced. There's no disputing that. I've been an awful fantasy football player the last few years, and I don't know if it's because it's 14 teams and I'm not used to it or whatnot, but it's just been disgrace. My teams the last few years have been awful.
Yeah, the only reason I'm taking a shot is because I actually have a good team for like the first time in 4 years in your league. So, I'm going to enjoy it while I can before inevitably, injuries start to pile up or something, and the team starts floundering. But for now, I'm enjoying my running back trio of Devontae Freeman, Marshawn Lynch, and Mark Ingram, which I've been getting many trade offers for, but I think I'll keep them intact for now.
Not a bad combo. I mean, it's kind of touch and go with all those guys, but not a terrible combo.
Now, one more thing. John, did you pick up Freeman off the waiver wire like everybody else, or did you draft him? And if you picked him up, how much did you bid on him? Because I should know this, but I don't remember.
No, I drafted him. He was like one of my last picks in either the first, one of the last round picks, and it was actually really lucky that Tevin Coleman was the starter before the season, and he gets hurt, and then Freeman comes in, and I was kind of nervous about it because all these stupid fantasy experts were like, "Oh, he's this plodding runner. Don't start him." So I didn't start him for that first game against the Cowboys. He gets 50 freaking points sitting on my bench. So I really so I really should have one more win than I really do. I guess in Mike's terms, it was wouldn't count as a win, or shouldn't count as a loss, because I had 50 points and I've been sitting on my bench. So I said I'm not making that mistake again. So he's been unbelievable. But yeah, he was one of my last picks in the draft. So that was a good job out of me. I'll pat myself on the back for that one.
Well, that draft pick alone is probably why you're going to make the playoffs. That's unbelievable. A year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have the dynamic duo at quarterback of Jay Cutler and Alex Smith, so I need all the help I can get.
You know, it's funny. I just got a tweet from Oatman. He says, "I bet you Tommy just went on Ditkow right as that inning started," and that actually is what happened. Oh man, tough spot. Tom, it's not your fault. I mean, how could you have predicted that?
I'm gonna get killed for it. Like I get killed for everything. So I'm not. Dave, just roll with it. I'll take the shots.
All right, sounds good. So just to close on fantasy football, one other thing, fantasy football experts can only do so much. I'm gonna agree with John on that. I just think that the fantasy quote experts, I don't think they're really as smart as everyone thinks. Because they were talking up Christine McMichael or whatever his name was, Christine Michael, for like 3 weeks. He hasn't done a thing. I threw in McFadden just out of the blue, and he ends up having more production than Christine Michael did in 3 weeks. So I don't really know. Are they just guessing? Like, is it just they did have an idea on him and it just didn't work out? I mean, Shakandrick, whatever the other guy, that guy from Kansas City has taken over for Jamal Charles. You just never know. I just feel like the point of all this is it's a mixed bag. I mean, do you feel like Christine McMichael is really going to have an impact on a tangible level? I'll field that to either of you.
Yeah. I mean, when you're considered like a fantasy quote-unquote expert, I mean, really, it's just, they have ex-NFL players on there talking about it. I mean, it's really just all a crapshoot when it comes down to it. I mean, you can use just statistics and analytics and that kind of thing, but it's really just all luck and kind of feel for it. I do like the one guy from the NFL Network, Michael Fabiano. I think he does a pretty good job. But I mean, it's just all a crapshoot in the end, because you could have the best lineup and then every player on your lineup breaks their leg in the first quarter and you're screwed. So I mean, it's just really all a lot of luck when it comes down to it.
I agree, and I also agree on Fabiano. I like him as well. I followed him, and last year I turned to him frequently for the Stardom Sit-'em feature, and I honestly thought it was pretty helpful.
Yeah, I like if you read his column, I'm sure you look at it, Dave. They have the lineup rankings, and they just list all the players, and it kind of gives you a good idea of, having like a debate between one player or the other. It really helps you out in that regard.
Oh, no doubt. It's very comprehensive, and he does a great job. It's a lot of work that you have to do to make that happen, those articles. So, nicely done. Let's go to the picks. So we start with Week 8 NFL picks. We'll go through these swiftly because we've got some great games to break down for you tonight. As we continue our coverage of the World Series simultaneously, the Royals now have a 4-1 lead. They added one in the inning. So the Mets will have a little mountain to climb, much like Stephane Matteau in the 1994 playoffs. We'll see how it goes. So Ron in New Jersey's first with NFL picks. Week number 8, here they are. Game number 1, a game that I think will be much talked about. He goes with the Packers -3 on the road at the Broncos. Now, both of these teams are coming off a bye, so both of them are going to be on their game, most likely. So Ron will side with Aaron Rodgers and the boys for game number 1. Game number 2, Cardinals -4.5 at the Browns. And I think enough data for the Browns is out on the table. I mean, the Rams were able to blow them out, so that pretty much tells you the story. And I'm sure they will have indecision at the quarterback position again. I think Manziel will start the game, but, I don't think that makes a difference. Cardinals -4.5. Packers -3 for Ron in New Jersey, Week 8. And a bonus pick. His bonus pick is Falcons -7 at home against the Buccaneers. Ron in New Jersey, Week 8 NFL picks. All right, so there it is to start. John, yeah, you have the floor next with the updated music. It is your turn for for pro picks. All yours, John.
All right, Dave. We'll start with your team. We'll go with the Steelers. The line I have is a pick 'em. I mean, you can adjust it for whatever. We'll take them at home against the Bengals. I'm still not buying the Bengals. And listen, Ben Roethlisberger is going to be back in this game, and their offense is completely different with him in there. Antonio Brown was like a ghost the last month, and when Ben is in there, he looks his way, and they're going to get their offense going. And I think that the Bengals they're coming off a bye, granted, but I just really don't think they're as good as they played. And I just think that if they win this game, the division race it's pretty much over with the other two teams in the division just being horrible, the Ravens and the Browns. So I think Pittsburgh wins this and keeps the race interesting. So I will go Pittsburgh. I saw pick 'em at +1, pick 'em, whatever. I mean, it's all the same. So we'll go with the Steelers for game 1. In game 2, I actually had a hard time finding games this week for the NFL. So this is going to be a strange one, but game 2, we'll go head-to-head with Ron. Can we get a check on this line? Because I'm seeing Cleveland +6. I like it much more than +4.5, but if it's 4.5, I'll stick with it anyway.
Let me double-check that. I will...
I had it at 9. I guess it's... wow. All right.
Oh, wait, hang on, guys. Hang on. Let's get the official word from Vegas Insider. All right, for Cleveland hosting the... Where are we here? I'm looking for Detroit. Come on. Where the heck is this line? I can't find it. Okay. Hang on. Who are they playing again? Oh, Cardinals. That's why I got messed up. Okay. Yeah, it went down to 4.5. It is -6 at Sportsbook, but minus. You know what? I don't know how you play that. I mean, we could just give it to you. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's meet you halfway. You're on the air. I'm gonna give you +6. I'm gonna give Ron well, that's a lot though. Yeah, guys, what do we do with this? I do not.
4.5's a lot, Dave.
Yeah, we'll just go. I'll take 5 if that's acceptable.
Let's take 5. We'll go 5. I think that's just right. So let's go. We'll have Ron -5, you +5.
Yeah, all right. So I'll take the Browns +5. I know it kind of makes no sense on paper, but the Browns have played well at home this year. They took the Broncos to overtime a couple weeks ago. I just think Arizona's a good team, but they've laid a couple eggs themselves against the Rams. They had that horrible game 2 weeks ago in Pittsburgh when they couldn't even beat Michael Vick and Landry Jones. For 1 o'clock start, I just think they might be a little sleepwalking a little bit in this one. And like I said, the Browns have played well at home. I could see this being a pretty close game, and you're catching points. So give me the Browns. I guess it's +5 now. So those are my 2 picks for this week.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for those, John, and very well done. And I think I'm glad we addressed this because I'll explain in just a moment. We have another participant in one of the 2 games you picked. So let us get to it. It is Say Hello to Otis's picks for week number 8 in the NFL. Here they are. Oatman goes with these 2 games. First, on Thursday night, he has Pats -9 million. That was what he wrote, but it actually is -8 against the Dolphins. So Pats giving 8. Certainly, you would expect the Patriots to have a big effort at home against the Dolphins. The only thing is that the Dolphins are weird in that they always give the Patriots fits. So that's the only thing. Patriots -8, game number 1. Game number 2, he will go on a checker with 1, head-to-head on the other. He picks the Cardinals -5 at the Browns. So it was 4.5 too, but we moved that up to 5 again to make it fair. I think it's better to put it at 5 because then that way having a round number, it works out better. So to repeat, Patriots -8 versus the Dolphins, Cardinals -5. Say hello to Oatman's Week 8 NFL picks. And the way that is for him. Now to Andy in Seattle for his picks. We'll go from him quickly. Let's see, where are we at here? Oh, okay, so let's go. Game number 1. We're picking this game again. Andy likes the Packers -3 at the Broncos on Sunday Night Football. Game number 1. Game number 2, the complete opposite end of the schedule. Lions +5.5 early in the morning against the Chiefs in London. So to repeat, Packers -3, Lions +5.5 for Andy in Seattle, Week 8 NFL picks. Okay, we're working our way to this. And now it is my turn for picks. So here are my selections. I'm happy to report I do not have a hand in the Cardinal game, but I do have a hand in the 49ers. +8.5 at the Rams. And here's the story with the Rams. You know how John was just talking about USC being up and down? The Rams are the same team. They are up and down every week. There's just nothing you can predict with this team. The only thing that I know definitively about St. Louis is that they don't score a large number of points. And how can you? I mean, Nick Foles is such a spaz. Like, he's just tough. Any kind of rhythm on offense will not happen with the Rams passing game. The most that they scored I saw in their wins this year was 24. So if the 49ers do anything on offense, and there have been games that most of the time they haven't, but if they put any offense together whatsoever, they should easily cover the 8.5. +8.5. Remember, the 49ers were giving points in the same matchup at St. Louis a year ago on Monday Night Football, and a memorable pick that went wrong for our friend Andy in Seattle. And the Rams could not, even them trying to give them the game, they couldn't do it. The Rams could not cover that spread. So the 49ers just took them away. I know the teams have changed, but I love the Niners in the spot, +8.5. Tom, you got any thoughts on last year's game?
You have to play maybe next week the Andy in Seattle rant. That was hilarious. I still remember that rant pretty well. That was a top 5 Andy rant, and he has a ton of them.
Yeah, maybe next week as we assemble for the Kids Club. So let's get to game number 2 for week number 8. And I'm going to go head-to-head with both Ron and John, and probably Tommy too, even though officially it's not... Oh, not John. Ron and Andy, and probably Tommy too. I'm going Broncos at home, getting 3 versus the Packers. This is my argument for the Broncos. The Broncos' pass rush is tremendous and has been all year. I think they will give Aaron Rodgers a little bit of a tougher time than normal in this game. They're both coming off a bye, so basically they should be ready to go. There shouldn't be any real surprises. Both teams are relatively healthy. I think they should be good. Should be in good shape, but it's just so tough to beat the Broncos at home, even with Peyton Manning playing the worst season perhaps in his career. But I still think the Broncos have enough to get it done, or at least cover the spread. 3 points at home against the Packers. So to repeat, 49ers +8.5 at the Rams. Broncos +3 against the Packers. The lone descending... Well, I wouldn't say it like that, but going head-to-head with 2 others in the Kids Club this week for week number 8 in the NFL. So that'll do it. Okay, Tommy, it is your turn. I know you usually do a full assortment of picks, and Thanksgiving is every week with your NFL selection. So if you've got anything on the table, it's our turn for Tommy's pick. So let's have you take it away.
I know a lot of people don't like my picks as I'm stealing the thunder and I'm not part of this little podcast usually, and I shouldn't be giving my picks. So everybody gets upset, but I'm going to give my picks anyway because I don't really care. First off, I don't think you should be apologizing for picking Denver over Green Bay. Denver has the best defense in the league, in my opinion, and despite the fact that Peyton Manning looks like crap, Denver's still at home, and they're undefeated, so you shouldn't apologize for that pick, Dave. So in that case, I am taking Green Bay -3 over Denver.
Good stuff.
My second bet will be Seattle -6 over Dallas. Oh, let me say, if any of these lines are screwed up, just tell me right away, and
Okay.
I'll change it. Seattle -6 against Dallas. I can't pick Dallas. The quarterback situation and the fact that the division's a joke, and I think Seattle obviously really needs the games now, and they know that they're probably going to be a wild card now, so they got to win these games. My next bet will be Carolina -6.5 against the Colts. Andrew Luck looks like a mess. It's obviously not all his fault. The team around him stinks. So Carolina -6.5.
Well, a quick
Cleveland-
update on. Let me just update you briefly. It's -7 at this point, so we'll
Okay,
get to
so Carolina -7
that. Okay. Yep.
over the Colts. Cleveland, the line is 5, I guess, +5 against Arizona. I don't know why I'm making this bet, but for some reason I think Cleveland's going to be able to cover. St. Louis -8.5 against San Francisco.
Oh, head-to-head.
Yeah, that should be a good one. I picked St. Louis last week, and that was one of the few games I won. Last week might have been the worst betting week I've ever had in betting. I think I went like 3-5-1.
Yep.
It was it might have actually been worse than that. It might have been 2-6-1. And I think the line for the Patriot game last week was 6.5, but I had it at 7, so of course I got a push instead of a win. So that rate pissed me off too. My next bet, Chicago +1.5 over Minnesota. Is it 1 or 1.5? Who knows?
Let me get that for you. It's 1. It's 1.
Okay, so Chicago +1 over Minnesota. Another weird pick. I have no idea why I'm picking that, but I am. And another one, Detroit +5.5 over Kansas City. I like the way Stafford played last week. I know they lost, but I just like the way he played. I thought he looked pretty good considering how bad he's been throughout the year. But for some reason, I think he's going to regroup and have another good game against Kansas City, who I don't know how they score points, but they do now, even with Charles down. But and then I have New England -8 over Miami, and no explanation needed. I've never liked Miami, and New England's New England, so there you go. Oh, and my best bet. I think I'm undefeated with my best bets, but I have the Jets
Look it up.
-2.5 against Oakland.
All right, so the bonus pick is Jets -2.5. That's a good one. That's a tough. I was waffling on that one all week, so I didn't go with it. But it's a pretty decent call. I mean, Raiders riding so high, you could imagine they're in for a huge letdown, even at home. So good luck to your picks, Tommy. Even though no one cares about them, but nonetheless, could be good and solid selections for all of you who are listening to us tonight. So, John, let's get to some of these games. And which ones are you looking forward to the most? I mean, Green Bay, Denver, obviously, probably is your favorite. And again, this is the game of the week. I mean, there's no way around it. This is a game that everyone's looking forward to. Two of the best quarterbacks ever to play the game. And you know what? Another classic battle of offense versus defense, but don't sell the Green Bay defense short. They're pretty good too. So, wow, what do you make of it? The two teams that have the fewest points allowed in the NFL. Could it be a low-scoring game? What do you think will happen?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, I definitely think this will be a low-scoring game. The Packers' offense really was out of sync the last couple games, even though they scored 27 against the Chargers. They scored 24 against the Rams, but really, it really didn't look that great. Eddie Lacy's been struggling all year. I really think they missed Devontae Adams the last couple games. He allows them to stretch the field a little bit. And you're seeing the effect that missing Jordy Nelson has. There's really that no deep threat. You haven't seen that patented play where, you know, everyone in the stadium knows it's coming. Rodgers fakes the handoff, and they kind of roll right and set up a pocket with the offensive line, and he throws it deep down the field. Well, they can't do that play anymore without Nelson. Look out for Jeff Janis. He's kind of like a Nelson clone. He's a second-year player. 7th round pick, so look out for that. But yeah, I was kind of surprised when I saw this line. I mean, this line is telling you Green Bay's favored by 3, but they'd be favored by 9 in Green Bay, which it's hard to believe. Honestly, I'm kind of expecting the Packers to lose this one. I know that's kind of a TFC thing to say, kind of rooting against your own team. I mean, I'm certainly not rooting against the Packers, obviously, but I just feel like Denver's defense is really good. And this is just kind of a game where, every team in the NFL loses games, and I just feel like the Broncos are going to win this one. I know it's kind of going against everything that you would expect me to say, but I honestly, obviously I would like to win the game, but I'm more concerned about the game next week against Carolina because that's a conference game, and that means more for home field and everything else. So if the Packers lose this one and win it in Carolina, I'd be perfectly fine with that. So if you had me to pick a score, I'd say 23-20 Denver if I had to make a prediction. Other than that, obviously that's the main game that I'm looking forward to. Not much else really on the schedule. The Cincy-Pittsburgh game is pretty good now with the Roethlisberger back. I mentioned that one earlier. And the Thursday night game now has juice too since Miami has played pretty well. But other than that, nothing much going on. And I feel bad for the people forced to watch Houston and Tennessee. If you're in that area of the country and you got to watch that game, go outside and do something because I'd rather do anything than have to sit through 3 hours of that trash.
Absolute trash.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. No question about it. So, let's see. What else do we have on the schedule? Well, let's get Tom first on Green Bay, Denver. Anything that you want to highlight from the matchup? It is a very good matchup. I mean, it's going to be a pretty tight one.
Let me say first that anyone that says J.J. Watt is the best player in the NFL clearly doesn't know the NFL or know how the NFL works.
Right.
Because obviously he has no impact on any of these games. And Mr. Aaron Rodgers has a huge impact on all these games, just like all quarterbacks do. And that's why quarterbacks are the most important players in the NFL. So you can put on your stupid J.J. Watt jerseys and go nuts about how great he is when they're down 40 points in the fucking first half, going gaga about how great he is and he does so many things for the team and whatever. They're losing all these games. They stink because their quarterback play is a joke. And their coach is about to get fired. And I think he's a pretty good coach. And I might be lost there, but I think he's a pretty good coach. And he's gonna get fired because their quarterback play is a disgrace. And I'm sick of putting money on the Texans every week like an idiot and losing tons of money because I think, hey, maybe this is the week Houston shows up. Think again. They stink. On to the Denver game. I think Denver, if they win this game, they might be the worst undefeated team in NFL history at this point. I mean, their offense is a joke.
It's bad.
But their defense is unbelievable. So, but I think John's completely right. This is a gravy game for Green Bay. They don't need this game at all. It's a non-conference game. If they lose it, big deal. If they win it, it's another win for them to get home field. It'll be another game. There'll probably be another game they won't have to play later in the year with Rodgers at quarterback starting. They could take another week off. They're clearly going to get home field. I know John doesn't want me to say that, but it's pretty obvious at this point. And but I think that's the marquee game. I don't think it's a great week of NFL action. I think the Thursday night game is pretty good, but a lot of these games not too great. I think Dallas, Seattle might be good, but I doubt it. Who knows?
No, I'm pretty
Dallas
sure.
really needs that game.
They do, but again, how are they going to do that with Matt?
Yeah, I know, but it's still Dallas. Everybody's going to get excited for like 10 minutes and then realize, oh yeah, this is the Dallas we all know now.
Yeah.
So.
It's such a shame that Romo. Again, I've said it already, but I mean, I feel bad for Tony Romo because this is the year. Everything was really clicking. The offensive line was better. And granted, I mean, the running game certainly isn't great, but if they were all healthy, my goodness. Well, one part of the problem, Greg Hardy, who is just a complete tool. I mean, that guy, why did they sign him? He's not even playing, and all he's doing is being a real cancer in the locker room. Just a complete disgrace by the Cowboys going after that. I mean, come on. It's not worth it at all. And maybe it's a little bit of karma for going that way to a guy who has a very, very checkered history off the field. So that's my take on that. John, let's go to you about Cincinnati, Pittsburgh. You picked the Steelers for the win. I wouldn't say upset. I'm just gonna say the win because they probably will eventually be the favorite in this game. It's a pick 'em right now. Ben Roethlisberger comes back, and not a moment too soon. It didn't take long for Landry Jones to be ineffective in the offense. I mean, he wasn't absolutely awful. Like, he wasn't really throwing interceptions so much, but he just could not get the ball downfield. It's just a major difference when you talk about a guy who's, been a system guy most of his life over at Oklahoma versus a guy who can improvise like Ben Roethlisberger. Clearly, Roethlisberger is going to be their man for the foreseeable future. And so the fact that he comes back is a good spot. And the Bengals, similar situation. It's a talented team, but like you, I feel like they're due to take a step back at some point during the season. Maybe this week, maybe next week, but soon it should happen. So anything else you want to add as far as your analysis for this matchup, which you already detailed in picks?
No, not really. I mean, I just feel like it's a good spot for the Steelers to win the Bengals their first loss, and we're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop on that. And I just feel like this is the week that they get their first loss.
Yeah, I've been feeling that way for 3 weeks, but so I feel like if it's going to happen, it's got to happen this week too, but certainly soon. Certainly by the end of the month. No, not this month. At the end of next month, it will happen. So, Tommy, what do you make of Steelers-Bengals? Or Bengals-Steelers, sorry.
This was another game I wanted to bet on, but I took Pittsburgh last week, and I was pissed about it, so I decided to stay away. But I like John's analysis. I think Cincinnati's due to lose. Ben playing, I think, gives Pittsburgh a little juice, and they have great weapons. So I definitely think Pittsburgh's going to win. I just wouldn't put any money on it.
Yep. It's I like the Steelers in my heart, but it's very tough to actually make that an actual pick because, again, I feel like I bring bad luck when I do that. So I will not make I don't usually make the homer pick in that situation. But I have my heart in it with them. It should be a fun time. It should be a fun game. And the Steelers have owned the Bengals in the past anyway, so it'll be a good time. And Le'Veon Bell in particular is going to be the key player to watch. He's got to go off if the Steelers are going to really have control of this one. And I think they have a good shot at that. I really do. I think he's played very well this year. Offensive line has improved, and they lost a tackle. Or is it a guard? But they lost a guy earlier in the season. But it hasn't missed too much of a step from that. I think it'll be a good time. So, lastly on the agenda for the NFL, we look towards Jets-Raiders. Jets with a nice win. Oh, no, sorry. Jets coming off a loss at New England. Oakland with a nice win. There you go. Will there be a reversal of fortune in terms of the win-loss, the win and the loss in this matchup? The Oakland Raiders have a long storied history of beating the Jets. They have beaten the Jets for so many times over the course of their 60-plus year history. I actually would make it a 50-plus year history. It will be... I really think the Raiders would get the edge in my head, but it's too small a line to really use. They're probably getting 2, no more than that. It's not even a field goal, so I would go with it, but I wouldn't make it official. So I like the Raiders. Let's see about John. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, it's a tough one. The Raiders are good to see them turning things around, and they really got a nice core of players there with Carr and Murray and Cooper, a nice trio to build their team around. But you just get the feeling that the Jets' defense is going to be the difference in this game. Fitzpatrick certainly worries you on the road, but you got to figure the Jets' defense is going to be the difference here. And the Raiders, when they played at teams with good defenses, they really haven't fared that well. They lost to the Bengals, lost to the Raiders, lost to the Broncos. So you kind of get the same feeling here. Raiders definitely headed in the right direction, wild card contender a little bit, but you got to figure the Jets will take this one.
So John is big on the Jets in this matchup, and Tommy's definitely big on the Jets. He made that his bonus pick, his guarantee of the week, his most confident pick. So let's elaborate on that somewhat. Tommy, what do you like most from the Jets?
Ryan Fitzpatrick? No, definitely not. But myself and Otis have like 100-year war going on between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Geno Smith.
Yep.
Which might be the dumbest argument, but it completely riles both of us up for whatever reason. I mean, you can't go on Twitter during a Jet game and not see at least 50 tweets back and forth between me and him about freaking Ryan Fitzpatrick. But in my opinion, I don't think he's been that bad this year. And obviously, based on their record, he hasn't been that bad. So I think it continues. I think the Jets, this is my best bet. So obviously, I have the Jets winning. But I think they'll win. They should have won. In my opinion, they should have won last week. If Marshall makes that catch, totally different game. And if they could stop Tom Brady on 3rd and 17, that was another big play in the game. But Tom Brady is Tom Brady, and Tom Brady makes those plays, and Tom Brady is Tom Brady. So I definitely expect the Jets. I know the Raiders have been playing well, and Derek Carr is suddenly now a good quarterback when he was actually a good quarterback last year. But a lot of people don't like quarterbacks until they've actually proven themselves or had great weeks for consistently. But I think he's a good quarterback. I always thought he was, so good for him. But I think the Jets will win.
All right, so two of the panelists go with the Jets. I will be the voice of the Raiders. I think the Raiders will win the game, but it is a tough game. But John's right. It's very tough to evaluate this. I mean, you talk about two upstart teams, two teams with a lot going for them. The Jets' strength is clearly in the defense, though they have decent offensive players, and the Raiders have good offensive. Forget good, great. I mean, Amari Cooper, he might be the rookie of the year. He's playing really, really great, and with high expectations, no less. So, I mean, Amari Cooper, certainly if he's not the rookie of the year, he's going to be one of a couple of very heavily favored players to win the award. I mean, is Amari Cooper standing out to you guys? We'll go back the other way. We'll go Tom first on Amari Cooper.
I think Todd Gurley's going to win Rookie of the Year.
Oh, that's a good one, too. Yeah.
Gurley's been a beast, but Cooper, I think everybody expected this, but I remember before the draft, people had him dropping. I remember just being like, why? He's going to be a guaranteed good wide receiver, probably great, and I can't believe people actually, before the draft, thought he was going to drop. And that still boggles my mind. I mean, did you watch the guy play in college? The guy was unbelievable. The guy was unbelievable as soon as he stepped on the field at Alabama. Unbelievable player. So I think it's going to be either Gurley or Cooper. Both unbelievable talents.
Oh, no doubt. Both of them are doing very well this year. So, John, I mean, let's take a look at the ongoing Rookie of the Year race. I mean, are these players looking good to you?
Yeah, I think Tommy's got it right. It's got to be Gurley. I mean, they kind of eased him into it this season, too, coming off the ACL, and he's just destroying defenses every single week. I mean, it's the kind of football that Jeff Fisher likes to play, and he fits it perfectly. Cooper's a beast, too, but Gurley's going to have, by the end of the season, I mean, he's going to have, 1,500 yards, I think, so there's no way that he's not going to win it. So, yeah, and people were taking the guy from West Virginia, Kevin White, over Cooper, and he hasn't even played a game yet. I think he's injured, so certainly a miscalculation there on their parts. But, definitely got to go with Gurley for the Rookie of the Year.
Excellent, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for the NFL, for NFL Thoughts, and that'll basically do it for the show. So we have a couple. These are some good games. I mean, Green Bay, Denver, Cincy, Pet, and Jets, Oakland. Should be fun. And I just want to thank both of you for coming on the show tonight. And Tom, I really appreciate you filling in for everybody else tonight. Look, I know it is very tough to schedule this show during a World Series, but we did that last year, and it was fine. And we had a good show tonight. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking about all the games. It's just tough to really push that to Thursday. You can't really do that. John just pointed out like 5 games that are on in college football alone, and then you've got the Patriot game at the same time. I couldn't cut in all of that just so we could do a podcast. There's just no way. And Friday would be too late. People would be going out. So, we make the best of the situation and you go with it. Next week it'll be much lighter on Thursday. So, for all of you, programming note: if the World Series goes to 7th game, we will do the show Thursday, but otherwise we'll have it at a regular time on Wednesday. So Wednesday, unless there's a Game 7. Otherwise,
it doesn't look like there's going to be a Game 7, Dave. And I'm happy to be on, but I'm very upset with how this baseball game is going. I'm assuming it's 4-1 still.
It is still 4-1.
The freaking Mets offense just disappearing. I mean, freaking unbelievable. Waste of money. $50 down the drain. This could have been a good payday. I was so happy. And, Dave, I'm happy to be on your podcast. I know I'm giving you a hard time, but you're my good friend, so I know you needed me to come on your podcast today, and I ranted a little bit about J.J. Watt of all people today, but that got me really fired up reading Twitter before, and idiots still saying how great he is. And, yeah, he's great, but the team doesn't win. So, yeah, thanks for having me on, Dave, and I'll come on again next week if you need me again.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very nice. So I'll post your picks at the simultaneous with our picks as we go to the website after the show tonight. John, again, thank you for your time as well, and I appreciate all the time that you've invested into this contest. Honestly, since we have the time to talk about this is really your baby. This began about 5 years ago when you decided to do what we call the Football Pick'em podcast, and you had a great panel then. It was Andy and yourself and Glenda. What happened to him? Have you heard from him lately? Are you still friends with him?
No, I haven't heard from him in a while. So
okay.
I hope he's doing well. But yeah, I haven't heard from him. So yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get too personal there, but yeah, it was. I just love listening to that show, and from that we did picks, and we had Tyler on in the beginning, but then we ended up having you guys, and it's just been a lot of fun. And what's really great is that the advice that we get, the analysis we get with the NFL games and the college games, it really brings a lot of more perspective to the two sports. And so I couldn't really do it without you guys. So John, it really means a lot for you to be on here all these weeks and contributing the picks and talking about the scenarios. So my thanks.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of fun, Dave. I mean, I really appreciate you having me on, and I just love that you incorporated have Ron in the mix this year. That was great. And there's nothing better than hearing either him or Andy just rant on some Mongo coach or game. That's like my favorite part of the show, when you go on these rants about obviously games that we lost. Well, that's the fun of it. So it's great, and I really appreciate you doing all this, Dave, and it's a lot of fun. So thanks.
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's and we're just getting started. This is half of the season now in the books. We will then have 17 weeks of this contest, so we have 8 more weeks after this podcast, and we'll have everybody back for the home stretch. So MLB postseason will be just about wrapping up by the time we go to air next time. And one last word for everyone. I want to just pass my best wishes to the Junkman watching this series. He's okay. He's not in bad health or anything. He's perfectly fine. But the Mets are in the World Series, so that's why we haven't had him on in the last 4 weeks, because he's just been busy watching these games. And so it's...
He's a Mets fan again?
Yes, he is. He's into it. He was really into it. He's really excited about them clinching the pennant last week. So we were talking about that in text.
Good to hear.
Yeah, it's good to see him, his faith renewed in baseball. So I hope, if all lines up, we can have the Kevin on the Cape back on the program finally, next week following Kids Club. For the meanwhile, enjoy all the games. Enjoy a big weekend. Tomorrow is going to be a great week in football, too. So we will have all of that for you. Tom, John, once again, thank you so much. Enjoy the weekend and happy Halloween. Oh, yeah, that's right. What are you guys doing for Halloween? You doing any trick-or-treating or costume parties or any of that? John, what do you have planned this Halloween weekend?
If the weather is nice on Saturday, I might actually play golf. So there's my big Halloween plans.
All right. Not bad. Tom?
I'm an adult, Dave, and as are you. And unless there's pretty girls involved and going to a party, you should not be dressing up for Halloween.
That's a fair point. Fair point. But oftentimes at the bars, that is the case. So it's always.
But saying that, I expect you to be dressing up. So I expect a picture.
Oh, a picture? Yeah. I got to do something different this year, though. I can't do the gorilla again. I've done that like 5 years in a row.
Star Wars?
Maybe Star Wars. Just trying to figure out what, though.
Darth Vader.
Vader? Everybody does that.
Yeah, why not?
Nah, it'd be fun. That'd be good. I like the ones with a mask, too, because it's I have an ugly face. So, I mean, I think the mask works better in a Halloween setting. So, yeah, I think it's a good choice. That's a good call. I think I'll go after it. So, thank you, Tommy. Good stuff. Okay, guys, so that's it for tonight. Enjoy the rest of this World Series game, and ain't over till it's over, as Yoga Berra would say. So take care, everybody, and enjoy the games, and good luck to the Pigs.
Thanks, Dave.
All right, thanks.
All right, fellas, enjoy. That's it for the show tonight. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. John, wonderful job. And Tommy, wonderful job. Everybody else, good to hear their picks via the text. We should have just about everybody back next week, and hopefully the Junk Man as well. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy your Halloween. We'll see you next time.